Ben Secrest here from Accurate Fishing Products. I want to take a minute and show you guys how to use a 2-speed reel. Get lots of questions from people. When do I stay in high? When do I go to low? Exactly what do I do with the 2-speed reel? So I want to take a few moments here and show you how this thing works. Let's go over some of the parts on a 2-speed reel. We make lever drag reels. We do not have star drag reels in our line. So this is a lever for a lever drag reel. These are the stops here. So the two black pieces of plastic you see are the stops that actually make this reel, before it goes to full, it stops. If you go past that stop, that's going to actually lock the drag or put as much tension on the spool as possible. If you're backing off on your drag, the stop right here before you go under free spool is critical. If you go past that while you're fighting a fish, this might throw a loop. It could either give you a knot, break the fish off, or you could get your finger caught in there and you could do yourself some damage doing that. But if you look on all the lever drags that we make, there's calibration here, and the calibration, these little indentations, and you have a little plastic knob that's inside this. What it does is it takes you up gradually, so you don't just slide up to full or slide back into neutral, if you want to put it that way, or free spool. So the other thing that's key on this reel is this is a tension mechanism, and the tension mechanism is for your drag. A lot of people don't understand with drags. Let's say this reel, which is a 500, I'm going to fish 50 or 65 on this. The key thing about drags is to make sure your drag is set accordingly. So if I'm fishing 50 pound, I want to fish a third to a quarter of the breaking strength, depending on where I'm at. I usually fish somewhere right around a third. So if this is a third, I'd be fishing 17 pounds. If I'm fishing a quarter on 50, figure it out. I mean, it's like what? You're talking like 15 pounds, somewhere around there, 13 pounds. It's critical to make sure that when you set your reel up, that your reel is, when you're testing your drag, make sure you take the line off. The reel's on a rod, take the line through the guides, and test the drag at the end of the tip with the scale. Do this a few times, and what happens is you'll start to understand what drags actually feel like. Oh, that's 20 pounds of drag, that's 12 pounds of drag. What I see a lot of times is guys will walk up to me and go, I'm fishing 40 pounds of drag, and once you scale it, it's like 22 or something. So by doing this, by getting yourself a scale and pulling off the tip so you can feel the drag that's actually coming off the rod tip, it'll give you a better idea of the type of drag that you're fishing. The other part on this reel that's super important as a 2-speed is the 2-speed mechanism. That's low, that's high. This thing right here, people go, dude, when do I go into high? When do I stay in high? When do I go in low? To me, if a fish is running around the boat and he's coming back at me and he's real erratic, I stay in high. Because the one thing you want to do is always keep pressure on the fish. No pressure on the fish, that hook falls out, you lose the fish. So when the fish is running around on the upper columns of the water and he's just doing his deal, make sure you're in a high gear. So what I do is when I'm going to lows, when like a tuna for instance, or a big yellowtail, he'll dig straight down. When he digs straight down, that's when I go into low. Pop it into lows, start turning. Real critical thing that I'll give you a little clue with this is that nowadays you see a lot more rods that are more parabolic. The more parabolic rods are excellent to use with these 2-speed reels, because once you get the rod loaded to a certain action, you can actually wind through that with your 2-speed in low and just keep the rod bent. Get your hand in a position where your arm is straight, where you're comfortable, or you can stick it on the rail too, either one, and just wind through it. You don't need to lift and pull and lift and pull. To me, when you're lifting and pulling on a fish, when you lift up and you let his head back down, all you're doing is sort of like slapping him. He's going to get more pissed off and start moving around at a different rate, and it's going to take longer to get him. When you get your rod bent where it needs to be bent and you start winding through the fish and you're lifting him, if you just do an even, constant turn, crank, and keep the rod in the same position, the fish will come right up to you. Then it falls into the hands of the guys that aren't going to gaff them. So that's the basics of a 2-speed reel and a little bit of knowledge on how to use it. The other thing I'll cover real quick is some of the spots people go, well, where do I lubricate my reel after I'm out? First place I do is I stick 1 drop of Corrosion X and the 2-speed mechanism. This is after I've actually rinsed my reel off with fresh water, got all the water out of it, and I've wiped it off. The other spot I'll lubricate is right here on the tension mechanism. And the tension mechanism, one drop here and you move it back and forth, it will keep it fine for a long time. The other thing I wanted to mention is when you are sending your drag, make sure that your lever drag is in free spool as you're turning the tension mechanism around. That's what you want to do on a lever drag. Another spot that I'll go through and use is a lot of times I'll go and make sure that I put little drops here where the screws are on the bottom. And why I do that is a lot of times this is usually a spot on a reel that no one pays attention to, but if you break your reel foot sometime, it's almost impossible to get those screws out unless you lubricate them. So we appreciate all the support throughout the years. We also appreciate you buying our product. We're made in the USA, and we really are proud of the stuff that we're putting on the market right now. Another thing that we've been doing that's sort of fun is we've been coming up with some new products. All these new products like the beanie and the new hats, they're all available at www.store.accuratefishing.com. And if you need to talk to anybody at Accurate, you got questions, you can call here, you can talk to Matt, you can talk to myself. Phone number here is 951-479-0909. We appreciate your business and we hope you're catching fish somewhere.